Princess Varelia stood in silence, her silver eyes cold, her back straight like a blade. The great hall of the Unity Spira floating space station between Earth and Cathari space was filled with delegates, soldiers and watchers. Everyone had come to see the marriage between a human and a Cathari royal. A marriage not of love, but of politics. She hated it. The humans had pushed the war for nearly 30 years. Both sides had lost ships, cities, and soldiers. Now they wanted peace. And to make the peace strong, they had asked for something ancient, an alliance sealed by marriage. The Cathari Council, under pressure, had agreed. Varelia had not. She was the third daughter of the High House of Kelith, born with pride, honor, and power. Her people felt deeply through the soul web, a silent connection shared by their kind. But the humans were different, loud, rough, driven by emotions they barely understood themselves. And now she was to marry one. He arrived wearing the black uniform of Earth's Stellar Command. His name was Commander Elias Ward, tall, scarred. His hair was dark, his expression unreadable. His eyes, though, held something strange calm, not pride. They stood face to face on the high platform. The Cathoria priestess spoke first. Her voice echoed through the hall. By the stars that birthed us, we bind this pact of peace. One from Earth, one from Cathori. Two worlds joined, not by desire, but by duty, the human speaker translated. The same words for Earth's side. Then the ceremony continued. No rings, no kisses. Just a binding contract witnessed by both councils and locked into the diplomatic archives of the galaxy. When the ceremony was over, Elias turned slightly and said, "It's an honor to meet you, Princess." His voice was quiet, soft even. Varelia didn't answer. She looked ahead, still and proud. Her hands folded in front of her. The walk back to their shared quarters was long and silent. 2 guards followed them. No words passed between the newly joined pair. Once inside, Varelia paused and looked around. The room was neutral clean white walls, soft blue lighting, a mix of Cathari curves and human angles. 2 sleeping spaces, one on each side. A sitting table in the middle. Felt like a battlefield in disguise. "You may take the left side," Elias said, gently placing his bag on the floor. "I won't touch your things." She turned her eyes toward him. "You will not speak to me unless necessary. We are joined only in name." He nodded slowly. Understood. She watched him for a moment longer. He didn't show offense. Didn't argue. He simply sat down at the far end of the room and pulled out a small datapad. Reading, not reacting. Varelia walked into her section of the room and closed the divider. She let out a long breath. Her fingers trembled slightly, but she steadied them. She had been trained for this, trained for diplomacy, survival, and silence. But, still, this was something else. The first night passed quietly. The next day was filled with events meetings, introductions, and staged photographs. Varelia stood beside Elias, wearing her ceremonial armor. He wore his Earth dress uniform. Every camera, every delegate, every alien ambassador wanted to see them standing side by side. They didn't touch, didn't smile. Later, as they walked back toward their quarters, a group of Earth officers passed by and saluted Elias. One of them whispered, "Poor guy. Married a cold one." Varelia didn't flinch. She was used to insults. But Elias paused. He turned slightly toward the group, his voice calm. "Speak like that again, and I'll have you reassigned to Pluto mining." The officers fell silent. One swallowed and nodded before hurrying away. Varelia stared at Elias. "You defend me? You're my wife," he said. "What?" "At least in the eyes of both worlds. That doesn't mean you respect me," he shrugged. "I don't have to. Love the treaty. But I won't allow disrespect from either side." Something shifted inside her, not emotion, not yet, but curiosity. Most humans she had met were either aggressive or overly kind. He was neither. Later that evening, Varelia sat by the window. Looking out at the stars, the Unity spire rotated slowly, showing glimpses of Earth, then deep space. Elias sat across the room, still reading. "Why did you accept this duty?" she asked suddenly. He looked up. "Because I've seen too much. War. If this stops another one, I'll wear the chains. And if I refuse to follow this pact," he met her eyes, "then I won't force you. I don't want a prisoner." There was silence, a rare, soft silence, not cold, hostile. "I expected a brute," she said. "I expected a ghost," he replied, "but here we are." For the first time, Virelia smiled just a little. Only for a second. Elias didn't see it. Or maybe he did, but chose not to speak. In that moment, something very small, very quiet stirred in the space between them. Not a bond. Not yet, but the possibility of something more than duty. Princess Virelia had never lived with a human before. It had been 3 days since the marriage. She still didn't call him by his name. She still didn't speak unless needed. But slowly, she watched him. Commander Elias Ward woke early. He trained in silence, cooked simple food, and never offered any to her unless she was in the room. He respected her space, did not stare, did not touch, but he was always aware. Virelia was trained in reading body movement. Cathari could feel small shifts in emotion through the air. Humans had no soul web, but Elias. There was something different. He moved like a man used to pain, but not ruled by it. One morning she stepped out of her side of the quarters and saw him sitting by the window, looking out into space. He didn't notice her at first. "What do you see?" she asked. He turned slightly. "Nothing, just thinking. About Earth. No. About the last time I came through this sector. It was during the war." She stiffened. "Did you kill Cathri?" He didn't answer right away. "Yes. In combat. I lost a lot of friends, too. We both did." His voice wasn't proud. It wasn't angry. It was tired. It surprised her. "You? Do not speak like other humans," she said. "Most people wear masks," Elias said. "I've had mine broken enough times to stop wearing one." That same day, they attended a diplomatic meeting on level 12 of Unity Spire. Ambassadors from 10 different planets were present. The goal: show peace between Earth and Cathari. Virelia wore her royal robe. Elias wore his formal jacket. They stood beside each other in front of the galaxy's press. One ambassador from Volon 3 asked, "Princess Virelia, do you trust your human husband?" She hesitated. Elias didn't look at her. He waited quiet. Finally, Virelia said, "Trust is not given freely. But I have seen that he is not a beast." The room laughed lightly. Elias smiled a little. "And I've seen she's not a weapon." Despite what people say, later, after the meeting, they were taken to a special event, a Unity celebration. Music played. Dancers from multiple species performed. Food from many cultures filled the air with strange scents. Virelia stood alone. Near the back, Elias came to stand beside her. For a while, neither spoke. Then she asked, "Do you miss Earth?" "Sometimes," Elias said, "but Earth is full of noise. Everyone's chasing something. Out here it's quieter, even with enemies." "You don't see me as an enemy?" she asked. "No," he said. "You're something else." She turned. To look at him, his face was calm, but his eyes held weight years of memory she couldn't see. That night, Virelia had a dream. She stood on a battlefield, stars burning above, and Elias stood beside her, his face covered in blood, but his hand stretched toward her. She woke quickly, breathing fast. The room was quiet. Elias was asleep across the chamber, facing the wall. She placed her hand over her chest, confused by the feeling. Dreams from the soul web were shared between Catharib, but humans had no connection like that, so why did? She'll feel something? The next day, a diplomatic error almost caused disaster. The Catharite Council sent a message to Earth's representatives. The translator failed. One word balance was mistakenly changed to threat. The humans reacted strongly, believing it a warning of attack. Earth's ambassador stood, voice rising. Cathara guards stepped forward. Virelia saw the danger forming. She moved quickly to stop her people. But before she could speak, Elias raised his hand. "Wait," he said calmly. Cathari would never threaten this directly. This is a translation issue. How do you know? The Earth's ambassador demanded. Elias looked at Virelia. Because I've spent the last 4 days watching her. Learning how she speaks, how she moves. The Kadari don't use anger like we do. Then he turned back. Send it through the second translator, you'll see. They did. He was right. The message was peaceful. Virelia watched him in silence afterward. When they were alone again, she asked, "How did you know to stop them?" "You weren't angry," he said. "You were surprised. I read it in your stance. You've studied our ways. I've studied war and peace. We can't survive if we don't understand each other." Later that evening, Elias sat at the table, working on a data file. Virelia stood nearby, unsure of her next words. "You are?" "Not like I expected," she said finally. He looked up. "How did you expect me to be?" Louder, cruder, hungry for control. He laughed softly. "Some humans are like that. But war taught me something. Control is a lie. All we really have is choice." She looked at him longer than she meant to. Then she said, "I have made a choice too. I will not fight you. Not unless you give me reason." Elias nodded. "That's fair." They sat in silence again, but this time it was not cold. Something had shifted. A thread. Thin but real stretched between them. Not love, not yet. Respect was growing. With respect, understanding could come. Virelia didn't smile this time, but she didn't close the divider either, and that, the world of politics and war, was a beginning. 3 weeks had passed since the marriage. Virelia no longer hated Elias. She didn't love him either. But she watched him closely now, not out of fear or duty, but curiosity. Every day, he surprised her in small ways. He fixed a broken heater. In her room, without being asked, he gave his seat to an injured alien ambassador, without waiting for thanks. He read history books about the Cathari, without telling anyone. Elias never asked for attention. He simply acted with quiet strength. But something strange was happening to Virelia. Every time Elias entered the room, she felt a small warmth in her chest. A feeling she couldn't explain. Pull knot. Physical. Not mental, but deeper. She tried to ignore it until the soul speaker arrived. The soul speaker was an elder of the Cathari, over 300 cycles old. Her name was Araya Salin, and her mind touched the soul web like a weaver touches silk. She had come to Unity Spire to check on Virelia. She entered the quarters with robes flowing like mist. Her skin glowed faintly blue. Her voice echoed inside, the mind instead of the ears. "Child of Keleth," Arasalin said, "you are not well." Virelia stood tall. "I am unharmed, not the body. Your soul is stirring. Something is touching it." Virelia hesitated. "It is only stress. This place is foreign." The soul speaker moved closer and placed 2 fingers against Virelia's forehead. Her eyes glowed. Her breath slowed. Then suddenly she stepped back. Her expression shocked. "You are bound. A thread exists. It is weak, but real. Links you." To the human, Virelia froze. "That's not possible. Should not be. Soulweb is Cathori only. No human has ever touched it." "Then maybe your reading is wrong." The soul speaker's voice grew softer, but heavier. "No, child. He has touched your soul. You must be careful. This bond can grow, or it can destroy." That night, Virelia sat awake, staring out the window. She replayed every word Elias had spoken. Every moment his eyes had met hers. She remembered the time he stopped an argument. The time he gave her the seat by the window when he noticed she liked it. The time he asked her if she wanted silence on, then gave it without question. She had never known. A human could listen so well without saying much. Could a human really touch the soul? She didn't believe it, but she couldn't deny the feeling. Anymore? The next morning, a strange thing happened. While walking through the docking bay, Virelia suddenly collapsed. Her chest burned. Her mind spun. She felt something deep, like a ripple in her soul. A wave of heat, confusion, fear. Elias was nearby. He ran to her, kneeling beside her. "Virelia, what's happening?" She was too weak to speak. Without thinking, Elias placed his hand on her shoulder, and in that moment, it happened. She felt him, not his skin, not his voice, but him. Warmth, depth, sorrow, strength, like a quiet fire. Like a storm hiding in silence, her soul didn't reject it. It welcomed it. Then everything went dark. She woke in the medical bay. Soft lights, gentle hums. Elias sat in the chair beside her, silent, watching. "You touched me," she whispered. He nodded. "You were falling. You reached my soul. I didn't mean to." A silence hung in the room. Then she said, "I felt your pain, Elias." Didn't look surprised. "I've carried it a long time. I'm sorry you felt it." "No," she said. "It was heavy, but not cruel. I lost people. During the war, my captain, my sister. I stopped counting after a while, and yet you agreed to peace. I didn't want revenge. I wanted to end the cycle." Later that evening, the soul speaker returned. She entered, quietly, looking at Virelia with calm eyes. "You felt it," she said. Virelia nodded. "And you did not break." "No," Virelia said. "I felt something real." "Then listen to me carefully," the soul speaker said. "This bond is rare. It's unnatural, but not evil. The human is different. His soul is open, but he does not know it. If the bond grows stronger, it will not be a political tie. It will be permanent." "What should I do?" Virelia asked. "You must choose. Stay near him, and the bond will deepen. Step away, and it may fade. And if I let it grow?" The soul speaker looked at her with kind, serious eyes. "Then he will not only be your husband by treaty, he will be your echo, your match in soul." That night, Virelia stood by the window again. Elias was in his room, quiet, still. She could feel him, even without sight. She thought of her people, of duty, of tradition, the soul web had never accepted. A human before, but now, maybe the web wasn't broken. Maybe it was changing. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to follow it. The halls of Unity's spire were calm, but something felt wrong. Virelia could sense it in the air like a cold breath against the back of her neck. The diplomats smiled. The guards stood straight. But behind the smiles, she could feel tension. Something was coming. She had felt strange ever since Elias touched her. Not just in the heart, but in the soul. His presence was louder. Now she could feel it without looking. It wasn't uncomfortable. But it was new. New things in politics were dangerous. She didn't know if Elias felt it too. He didn't say much, but he had started watching her more. Not like a soldier guarding a target, but like a man trying to understand. Something he had never seen before. She didn't push him away anymore. That morning, Virelia was invited to a private gallery on Deck 7. It was supposed to be a gift from a neutral ambassador paintings of Cathore and Earth's shared history. Elias insisted on coming along, even though it wasn't required. She almost told him no. But then she saw something in his eyes. A quiet warning, so she said yes. They walked into the gallery. The room was dim and quiet. Only 3 other people stood nearby diplomats, according to the security file. Art lined the walls, battle scenes, peace treaties, moments from war and unity. Then Elias stepped in front of her, suddenly tense. "Get back," he said sharply. A sharp sound, a shadow moved. A figure in black lunged from behind the art wall, blade in hand. Fast and silent. A trained assassin. Virelia barely had time to react. But Elias moved first. He pushed her aside and turned his body, taking the blade into his side. Pain flashed across his face, but he stayed standing. Blood bloomed from his uniform. Virelia didn't scream. She dropped to one knee, pulled a small energy blade from her sleeve, and struck the attacker across the leg. The figure stumbled. Guards stormed in seconds later. The assassin tried to escape, but a stun blast dropped him cold. Virelia turned back to Elias. He was on the floor now, leaning against the wall, his breathing heavy. The wound was deep. His blood was dark red, almost black under the lights. "Stay awake," she said. "I'm fine," he whispered. "Don't cry." "I'm not crying." But she was shaking. The medical bay was quiet. Virilia sat by Elias's side as doctors worked on him. He didn't lose consciousness. Not fully. But he was weak. Pale. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I promised to protect you," he answered. "I keep my promises." "I'm not a treaty anymore," she whispered. "I'm a person." He smiled a little. "I know. That's why I protected you." Her chest ached not from fear, but something deeper. "At!" She remembered the soul speakers. Warning, the bond was growing, and now it was stronger. She could feel his pain in her own ribs, as if the blade had touched them both. Later that evening, after Elias was stabilized, Virilia called for the soul speaker. "She saved me," Elias had told the doctors, "but I would do it again." The soul speaker stood in silence for a long time after hearing the story. Then she spoke softly. "He bled for you without thinking, and your soul responded." "I didn't want this bond," Virilia said, "but now I cannot deny it." One chooses how their soul speaks, only how they answer. Virilia looked at the sleeping form of Elias. "If this continues, if we complete the bond, he will become a part of you, and you will become part of him. You will share emotion, pain, memory forever. And if he doesn't understand it, he already does. He just doesn't have the words. Humans feel with their hearts. You feel with your soul. But feeling is the same in both." The next day, Virilia sat beside Elias again. He opened his eyes slowly. "Still here?" he asked. She nodded. "You stopped an assassin. I owe you thanks. You don't owe me anything." She looked at him seriously. "I felt your pain. I felt your fear. It entered me through the bond." He blinked. "I thought I was just imagining that." "No," she said quietly. "We are bonded, truly. I cannot break it anymore." Elias tried to sit up, then winced. "What does it mean?" "It means," she said, "you are not just my husband by treaty. You are now connected to my soul." "That sounds like a lot of pressure." She almost laughed. "It is." Then she grew serious again. "But it also means I will protect you, just as you protected me." Later reports came in. The assassin was hired by extremist radicals from both Earth and Cathari who wanted the peace treaty to fail. The marriage was too powerful, too symbolic. They wanted war to return. They failed. But Virilia knew. This was only the beginning. Someone had tried to kill her. Someone had hurt Elias, and now she would fight back with him by her side. That night, they stood together by the window again, too. Figures. One bond, Elias reached out his hand, unsure. Virilia looked at it then, slowly. The attempt on their lives changed everything. Virilia was no longer just a symbol of peace. And Elias was no longer just a soldier fulfilling his duty. Now, they were partners. Since the attack, the bond between them had grown stronger. Virilia felt it when Elias was in pain, even before he spoke. Elias, too, had started feeling strange emotions that weren't his. Calm when Virilia focused. Worry when she was afraid. Sometimes he even finished her sentences without meaning to. Soul Speaker called it resonance. The souls touching like music. When in harmony, it could do more than connect hearts. It could change history. But peace was still in danger. Virilia and Elias were called to a private meeting with Unity, Spire's Central Council. Inside the chamber were human leaders, Cathari, elders, and neutral world diplomats. Everyone looked serious. The head of Earth's delegation stood first. "There has been another threat," he said. "A data breach. Someone tried to delete the marriage records. They want to erase the union, erase the symbol of peace." Elias leaned forward. "Who?" "Not sure, but we know the enemy is working from inside." Virelia's voice was cold. "They want us to fall apart. If we split, the alliance breaks." Elias looked around the room. "Then we give them the opposite. We show them unity." "How?" A Cathari elder asked. Elias glanced at Virilia, then said, "We go public. It's not just as leaders, but as bonded souls." The room fell silent. Human general spoke up. That would be risky. You'll be targets. We already are, Virelia replied. The elder nodded slowly. Then speak. Show them the truth. The next day, a press conference was held in the Spire's Grand Hall. It was broadcast live across Earth and Cathari systems. Billions watched. Virelia stood tall in her traditional robes. Elias wore his officer's coat, now stitched at the side where the assassin's blade had torn it. They stood side by side.
No barriers.
No fear. Virelia spoke first. I was forced into this marriage for peace. At first I saw only duty. But then I saw a man who protected me, a man who listened, a man who bled for me. She paused, letting the silence fill with emotion. I did not choose the treaty, but I choose him. The crowd was quiet. Many leaned forward. Then Elias stepped up. I was raised to fight. I spent half my life in war. I thought peace was only possible through strength. But then I met her. She is strength, but not in the way I knew. She is grace. She is fire that doesn't burn, but warms. He looked at her now, not the cameras. She was once a stranger. Now I feel her inside me. Not just in thought, but in soul. Soft. Light glowed between their hands. A gentle hum. The bond, the hall filled with quiet awe. After the broadcast, public support rose across both worlds. People shared their stories. A Cathari poet and a human musician created a duet. A school on Mars renamed itself after Unity Bond Academy. For the first time, citizens began to believe the peace might be real. But behind the hope, shadows moved. The assassin had spoken under questioning. There's more, he had said. The true enemy is hidden. The bond threatens their power. They want war back. They're planning something big. Virelia and Elias were moved to a high-security wing of the Spire. Guards watched the doors. Security drones circled above inside their private quarters. Things felt different. Not cold, not tense, closer. That evening, Elia sat on the floor, eyes closed. He was breathing deeply, focusing. What are you doing? Virelia asked, trying to listen. To what? He opened his eyes slowly. To you? She tilted her head. Me. He nodded. I don't know how to explain it, but sometimes I feel something peaceful. It pulls me. It calms me. She smiled softly. That is the soul web. It's reaching for you. But I'm not Cathera. No, she said. But maybe. You don't need to be. Later that night, Virelia had a vision in it. She stood in a forest of stars, and Elias stood beside her. Around them, the soul web glowed like a living map. Normally, only Cathori could walk its paths, but Elias stood with her, and the web welcomed him. She woke with a sharp breath. Across the room, Elias opened his eyes too. I saw something, he whispered. So did I. They didn't speak for it. A moment then, Virelia said, the bond is complete. He nodded. Felt you like you were inside a dream, but awake. You are more than human now, Elias. You are part of the web. I didn't think that was possible.
I neither.
Did one, but somehow we proved everyone wrong. The next morning, an emergency alert hit the station. Explosion. South Wing. Engineering. The power grid was under attack. Sabotage, the enemy had made their move. Virelia, and Elias looked at each other. No words were needed. They moved together, not as two people from different worlds, but as one bonded ready. Red lights flashed through Unity Spire. Explosions shook the south wing. Smoke filled the lower levels. Urgency alarms screamed. All power routes were under attack. It was no accident. The enemy had revealed itself. Inside the command deck, Virelia and Elias stood together, side by side. They watched the damage unfold on the holographic map. Flames spread. Systems were falling one by one. They're targeting the core systems, Elias said. If they destroy the fusion coils, the spire will fall. Virelia's voice was calm. There are 18,000 people on board. They won't make it if the station breaks apart. A soldier turned to them. The attackers left a message. They said peace is weakness. They want the war back. Varelia's hands clenched. Then we fight not for politics, but for everyone here, Elias nodded. We do it together. They moved quickly, wearing armored suits and guided by the bond between them. As they ran through smoke-filled halls and shaking floors, Varelia could feel Elias's thoughts. His worry, his focus, his strength. He felt hers, to her calm, her anger, her fire, in the lower levels. The attackers had taken control of the fusion room, 12 armed. Radicals guarded the place. Explosives were already placed on the main reactors. We can't win with firepower, Elias whispered. No, Varelia replied. But we don't need to fight like them. She stepped forward into view. The attackers raised their weapons. Stop, one of them shouted, or we detonate the charges. Elias stayed hidden, watching from above through a maintenance tunnel. Varelia lifted her hands. Afraid, she said. That's why you want war back. But war won't save you. It will burn everything. We are soldiers, the man shouted. Peace made us useless. No, she said firmly. Peace made you important. Built something better. You still can. The leader hesitated. Then one of the radicals moved to press the detonator. That was the moment Elias acted. He dropped from above, knocking the detonator aside and grabbing the attacker's arm. A fight broke out. Varelia rushed in with her energy blade. The room turned into chaos. But it didn't last long. The guards were trained, but they weren't bonded. Varelia and Elias fought in perfect sync. He blocked. She struck. She dodged. He fired. Their movements flowed like water in less than 3 minutes. It was over. The bombs were disarmed. The fusion core was safe, and the war that nearly returned stopped. Back in the command center, the Spire systems came back online. Lights returned, air systems cleared, and the alarm went silent. The council stood waiting. Is it done? One ambassador asked. Varelia stepped forward. The threat is over. For now. Elias looked around the room. But more may come. Peace is still fragile. What stopped the enemy this time? Young officer asked. The answer was simple. Our bond, Varelia said. Elias nodded. Not just between us, but what it represents. A human, a Katharai, 2 different worlds, working as one. The soul speaker stood in the back. She watched silently as a soft light surrounded the couple. The soul web was glowing, not just between them, but spreading across the chamber. Other species, other people, some, could feel it too. Not as clearly, but enough to understand. Peace was not weakness, it was strength, the kind of strength only shared hearts could create. Days later, a grand ceremony was held in Unity, Spire's central chamber. People from every system were there. Humans, Cathari Valen, Solari, even Long Quiet. Worlds sent their leaders to witness it. The new agreement was signed, not just a treaty, but a declaration, the Unity Accord. A promise of trust across all species. Elias and Varelia stood at the center, hands linked. No longer hiding what they were. He was no longer just human. She was no longer just Cathari, royalty. Together, they were something new. A symbol of a future no one had dared to dream before. Later, the crowd had gone and the room was quiet again. Varelia stood by the viewing glass, looking at the stars. Elias stepped beside her, tired. He asked. She smiled. No, just thinking. About what? She looked at him, her silver eyes soft. When I first met you, hated everything this union stood for. I felt trapped, controlled, afraid of losing myself. And now? Asked gently. She didn't answer with words. Instead, she placed her hand against his chest and then she spoke. My soul was silent for a long time, but today it sang. Elias touched her hand. I never believed in fate, he said, but somehow finding you feels like the only thing that ever made sense. They stood there in silence. No orders, no missions, no war, just 2 people, and the echo of 2 worlds in their hearts.